divine power, known as the great power. Well, let's go a little further. They followed him because he had amazed them for a long time with his magic. It's interesting how this little episode got in the Bible. How many different things that must have happened in Christ's life. But here's this one, and after Christ had gone to heaven, the apostles had this conflict because Simon he had a big part to play with Christianity thereafter. Now we go to the Chinese traditional medicine on here. What is that? Well, it's pretty much the same as the Hinduism that we've just covered. Now I'm downtown Shanghai, took this picture. This is an area of Shanghai that's special for the visitors, of course. The city is a big, modern, huge city with a fantastic lighting and so forth. But they have an old section there to do this. And we go back into the history of China, that we have this emperor is known way back at, 2900 BC. And he's the one that supposedly came forth with the Pa Kwa, or the circle of harmony. And he's known for that. Then we go to a little later on, which was at, where's the date on this one? Can't see it. Anyway, we're still there, but let's go. Okay, here we are. This is the band that began to bring on the different herbs. And he had 365 herbs, 365 to fit astrology, the days of the year. He tested them on himself. So he was known and wrote a book, became famous for the herb use. Now, they didn't know much about biochemistry then. Many of those plants can be poisonous. They can be very important and helpful as well. This emperor wrote the people he was under wrote the first great medical text of China, the Yellow Emperor, ancient China. All right, now there, the child is representing man and is a microcosm of the macrocosm. The sky, the earth, the universe out there is the macrocosm. Man is supposedly a miniature of the macrocosm, has everything within it that has the universe. So an association of planet, sun, moon, and earth, and man. The man is a microcosm, cosmos, the macrocosm. This is fundamental in the Chinese philosophy. And they have what the Taoism, the way of nature, three basics. That man is the image of the cosmos. There is the chi, the creative principle, energy, which is two parts to it. And then the basic elements of metal, water, wood, fire, and earth, which are simply synonyms for 5 creative planets, Saturn and so forth, as we have here, that Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, and Mercury, they are using this terminology. The Chinese get involved in fives this, 5 that, and it goes on and on and on. And it's totally connected in the concept of astrology. They have this symbol of a man in the circle, and the 5-pointed star is made, and that's a pentagram, a very religious, sacred symbol to them. The disease is an end result of the imbalance of the chi. The chi is this cosmic energy we've been talking about, and it's a result of a lifestyle of demons that are supposed to call it. And the winds supposedly carry 100 different diseases on there. Now, the Chinese philosophy is that this universal power flows down through the body. We have 12 organs in our body, they say, and it is especially flowing through one of those organs every 2 hours, which is the Chinese hour. Chinese hour is 2 of our hours. So it flows through all of the organs continuously, but certain organs, one after another, in a greater flow for a whole Chinese hour, and day after day this occurs. And so that the chi also has different changes of flow on certain seasons, a variety of their concept. We need to move forward here. There we are. Thank you. Like cures like. If you have some plant that looks like an organ of the body, then that plant is supposed to have a sympathetic relationship to the organ and will affect it and give history or give healing. Let's take the walnut. It looks kind of like a brain, for this corrugations over the top, and so the brain under this philosophy is excellent therapy for brain problems. If you want your child to grow with a straight spine, you eat a pig's tail. Their pigs there have straight tails. And so sympathetic remedy, this will give the child a straight spine. Now, I was in Fuji, and the pigs down there have a tail like a dog and a lot of hair like a horse on it, and long. It's interesting, and many of our pigs here have those curled tails on that part. Ginseng, it looks like a body, so it's good for all things on this sympathetic remedy business. A tiger's heart gives you courage if you eat a part of a tiger's heart. And the Satanic concept of health and healing is to balance. Balance energy that's supposedly flowing through or not flowing through so well. So we're going to look a little bit more at some of those methods here. The Qigong is the name of the whole concept that meditation, exercise, and a breathing in the essence. And the essence is that universal power. And it's used to obtain the physical and spiritual perfection, to bring more of that into the body. And the different exercises used to direct the qi to the center of the body. So the martial arts in this manner is the idea of moving that energy in such a way that you connect, and even that the energy will come down through the brain, down through the spine, to 300 feet deep in the earth, and then you cannot move the person off balance. I was teaching this here many years ago, and one of the elders of this Spanish church came to me after. He says, you know, I was taking this course of martial arts, and the instructor asked two of us to lift him off, to move him. We couldn't move him. He was attached to the earth, that this power was attaching him. He says, that's when I quit on that part. I had another minister tell me that he had in college a roommate that was dealing in this, and it's pretty much the same thing happened with him, and he separated from the association of that. There's a power there, make no mistake. Meditation, exercise, breathing in the essence, used to obtain physical and spiritual perfection. And the exercise used to direct qi energy to the center of the body so as to travel through soles of the feet into the earth 100 yards deep, and to stabilize the person to earth so that they cannot be knocked off balance. That's one type of practice that is supposedly moving this energy. And it's a form of meditation. It can be moving or it can be motionless. The same thing, allowing another force to take control of our mind. Now, this particular comment and quotations here, in the early 1970s, this person writing it, Jerry Johnson, I was training in Chinese internal martial arts under a Taoist master from Taiwan. As my teacher began to explain the deeper secret teachings of the Taoist internal Qigong system, I suddenly found myself in a state of deep internal conflict over something that he said. My instructor explained that his teacher, Master Ho, had taught all of the senior disciples that inside the human body are various gods. If one knows their secret names and their true forms and prays to them, you will receive their hidden internal powers and will be able to use this magical energy for both healing application and combat. Many people have not realized what martial arts are, but they're right deep out of this very basic concept. Now there's the martial arts of the hard type, where there's the combat, or the soft type, which is the Tai Chi. And there's other names for, let's say if you go to Japan, there's certain names. You go to Okinawa, or you go to China, and so forth. They'll give different names, but the same concept behind it. The Tai Chi, very soft movements, 108 different movements. Remember, 108 planets in the the zodiac of the Chinese. I was traveling through China, and every morning, all over that country, people are outside doing this. Every place we went. For about a half hour, the countryside, the streets, everything is filled with exercising people. And they may be dancing, but more like this, doing the Tai Chi. Then it's time to go to work. And they are out there moving this universal spirit that they believe in. 108 moves. And it has this contact with the astrology belief, the 5 planets. So this business of fire, wood, earth, metal is simply synonyms referring to these planets in the belief of astrology. The acupuncture, let's speak a little more direct there. And also there are a few little booklets left out there on acupuncture, unless somebody's picked them up. These were written by Yvonne Shelton, and she earned her living for some years before getting connected with 3ABN, being an acupuncturist. Somebody sent her a copy of my book some years ago. She set it aside for a year, and eventually somebody brought it up again, and she read, and I mentioned in there that the books on these mentioned that all of their practices are based in astrology. And that's what really turned her interest. And then she totally divorced. She said she was earning 95% of her income on that alone. And she stopped it and cleared it. And now she's had a beautiful little handbook on that. And there's a few. They will be in the ABC too. I think they're $3 in the ABC on there. Okay. Denny, did you have a question? Was there a question? I saw your hand up. Okay. Not so. Thank you. All right. Pulse diagnosis. There's a big book that's on the pulse diagnosis. Well, sure, we take a pulse, but it's not checking for the universal spirit. We check for the rhythm, for the strength, and so forth. But that was typical. You've heard of that. And looking at the tongue, the Chinese. Now, a few years ago, I was invited to present at a camp meeting up in Saskatchewan, Manitoba camp meeting. And I stayed in the little town of Yorktown, a few miles from the campgrounds. They didn't have a place on the campgrounds for me. So I went by and I saw this, the Yorktown Acupuncture. And so I took a picture of the sign on the door, just of interest here. Yorktown Acupuncture and Holistic Health Center. And they have acupuncture, Chinese, herbs, massage therapy, the body talk, hypnosis, reflexology, and Reiki. Just showing you what is so typical. You have, I'm sure, in your town, similar offices and so forth. Every place you go around the world, I saw this. So this is not localized any longer. It is spread. Originally, you can see where it's so much based in the astrology. 12 meridians, these lines up and down the body, 365 points early on. Now they've changed a bit and added to it. But to begin with, the idea is that if they had a little plant called MAGUS, this little plant they would set on fire and then put it on the skin and burn these spots. Now then they went to needles. And the idea is that the energy is flowing through these meridians, these up and down channels, and it's getting clogged or something's interfering, and if by putting pressure on certain points or putting a needle or burning it, you can alter it and balance the energy. That's the whole concept. And so when we have people doing the acupuncture, medical science has not been able to find that it affects us on a true physiological basis. All right. And even supposedly you don't have to do the body, you can do it on the ear and accomplish the same thing for the whole body on there. Gives you a little idea there. Now, the National Institute of Health some years ago says there's 3 things that acupuncture will help. And so they put this on the website that it would help. Acupuncture would work for some pain situations, for some nausea of chemotherapy, but the help was weak. Some years later, they developed a placebo test. And then they had to throw out all the other work because now they found that the acupuncture was no better than placebo. This was done on thousands of patients over time, where the people examining them, those that administered it, those that examined were different people, done a controlled study with the placebo, and it wound up, yes, they got better, but so did the placebo people that didn't get the actual acupuncture but thought they did. So on a basis of true science, at this point, the National Institute of Health changed their comment on the website saying we have to disclaim what we put in the past. The statement is more than 5 years old and is provided solely for historical purposes. Due to the accumulated nature of medical research, new knowledge has inevitably accumulated in this subject. Thus, some of the material is likely to be out of date and worst, simply wrong. So that's the status. And I mentioned by year 2000, about $2 billion had been spent on these types of studies. Now, I'm just reporting here briefly and mention these are some huge studies. This is 638 people receiving the acupuncture for back pain. And all of the acupuncture groups improved above no acupuncture, yes. But when they then had the sham, they found that with 6,359 patients over a period of time, when the sham, which was the placebo, they equaled those that got the true acupuncture. So in the turn, the scientific evidence was it's a placebo effect. Now, it doesn't mean that occasionally there'd be somebody may have really received the power of healing through it. I don't doubt that. But overall, it isn't something you look for. Now, those therapies that come from the Hinduism and from the Chinese traditional medicine come out of cultures that have used them for thousands of years. What was their medical condition in those countries? Horrible. Unbelievable when you really get the scientific facts. And yet here we take those studies, take those therapies and bring them in as superior with no evidence of real true benefit. This is a problem. And we look now at China. In 1950, if you were born in China, you could expect on an average of 35 years of life. Some people got old, but a lot of children died early. 50 years later, you could expect 70 years of life. Mao Zedong did one thing. He began to bring about public health, close the sewers, pick up the garbage, clean water, control vectors for parasitic disease. Tuberculosis would kill 1 million a year there, and begin to control. Not dealing with disease because of a imbalanced energy, but dealing with it on a scientific basis that there are germs, there is cleanliness, there is health to be gotten by good nutrition and so forth. So in 50 years, double the average lifespan in China. This comes from the World Health Organization. That's quite an event. And it didn't come from using acupuncture or the meditation. Think about this. Those things that have imparted into us and we've taken as something wonderful and healthful. No proof of their value. So we as Christians have, as we pointed out the first night, we have the health history of the most valuable advice for health living given by God to His people, and scientifically to put us at the top on there. So we want to contrast those things and not be persuaded, even though it seems like I got well on that part. Latent forces of the mind. We're closing this one out. The apostles of nearly all forms of spiritism claim to have power to heal. They attribute this power to electricity, magnetism, the so-called sympathetic remedies, or to latent forces within the mind of man. There are not a few, even in this Christian age, who go to these healers instead of trusting in the power of the living God and the skill of well-qualified physicians. Danger in investigating. We have reached the perils of the last days when some, yes, many shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Be cautious in regard to what you read and how you hear. Take not a particle of interest in spiritualistic theories. Satan is waiting to steal a march upon everyone who allows himself to be deceived by his hypnotism. He begins to exert his power over them just as soon as they begin to investigate his theories. And that brings this one to the end. We'll take 5 minutes, which we'll start again. And I want to go into the next would be, I don't know what's listed on your list. Is it divination on the outline?
No, it's reflexology and other energy balancing modalities.
Okay. Because of time, I'm going to go, reflexology and those other things are all based on the same premise. So you can look at those. I'm going to go to divination because of time here. You'll find that very interesting. It's also, I run a risk when I begin to talk about water witching. So that brings on anger and